Hey everybody, I'm Tarl Yarber with Fixated Real Estate. Welcome once again to another episode of Analyzing Deals Like a Pro. Check out this property. You can literally taste this property through these photos. This is a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 1,600 square foot home just outside of Seattle, Washington, an area called Federal Way. Now, some of you might be looking at these photos and seeing this property and think, heck no, there's no way you would ever buy a house like this. I mean, it's disgusting. There's so many things wrong with it. Now, other of you guys are watching this right now and go, wow, this is a great property. I'm going to tear it down and build something new. Now, if you guys like me, then you're looking at this property who I've never built a house before. I've only remodeled and rehab and flipped houses and BRRRR'd, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And when I see a house like this, I see, wow, as long as the structural is okay on this property, then I'm good to go. And it's a blank slate. And I could practically paint by numbers on the rehab and make this house something awesome as long as the numbers work out. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, this property and this video, we're going to go over in depth all the processes we went through in acquiring this property, the numbers, how we kind of overcame the fact that we couldn't see everything in this house when we went to analyze it because there's so much crap in it, literally, actually, so much in this property that we couldn't analyze the entire deal for the rehab. So how do you plan for that? How do you plan contingencies? How do you work through that and create buffers and so forth on a property like this to make sure that you don't lose money at the end of this project? Now, by the end of this video, I'm also going to go over the red flags. I'm going to go over all the rehab process, before photos, after photos, floor plans, even some finishes, and some tips and tricks and pro tips that you can use in your business today by the end of this video. Now, also, one last thing. I hope that you guys are actually making profit in this business because at the end, you'll see how we made over $60,000 flipping this house to a lovely family in Federal Way and how we not only completely remodeled and rehabbed and changed this house, we took a blighted home, a property that was totally devaluing the neighborhood and was a danger to the neighborhood, and completely fixed it up. And all the neighbors by the time we were done with this, were so grateful that we came in and took care of this property. So if those of you guys think that if house flippers have a bad rap, well, some do, but if you do it right, you actually can create a great reputation and a great product. So let's check out this property. Let me show you how we made $60,000 on it, and let's get after it right now. All right, so let's jump into this and let's get these photos out of the way so you get a better idea of how this property feels, what we're really dealing with. And these photos that we took, these are the exact photos we took when we first walked this property. So here's my first pro tip. I've said it in a lot of videos in the past, always take pictures. Now I'm able to go over this entire property with you from my desktop here in my office through the photos we took of this property a long time ago, right? Because we took photos in depth. We took hundreds of photos of this property. And we always take pictures because we always assume we're never going to be able to get back to the property again. And we need to be able to analyze this property as much as possible from the comfort of our home instead of in the middle of this mold infested house, right? Which you guys are going to see in a second. It's very hard to analyze rehab if you're struggling to breathe. So as you can see, when you look at this house, it looks kind of messed up, right? There's really not much going on, nothing special with it. If you look at the neighborhood around it, which I don't have photos of that, you'll see that this is absolutely the worst house in the entire neighborhood. Now, on the outside, you already kind of think that the house might be kind of ugly on the inside, but it's a lot worse on the inside than what the outside might take. So let's go inside. So first glance, you can already tell this place is like maybe a hoarder house. Here's the garage. Now, you can't even see anything in the garage other than the trash. So how do we actually analyze what's in there? How good is the flooring, all that stuff? You know, the garage door obviously doesn't work, right? There was a big surprise for us on this garage, actually, because we couldn't see what was underneath all this trash in the garage itself. We also didn't see that the garage slab was pretty messed up, and that became an expense for us later on this house. So first red flag for us on this property is we can't analyze the entire rehab on the property because there's too much junk everywhere. So we have to make some assumptions. We're going to go over that with you guys. So going into the kitchen, you can see if you're just rehabbing this property. So here's the tip. If I already know I'm going to put a brand new kitchen in to begin with, as long as I'm putting it in the same place, I'm not really worried about all this garbage and all this junk that's in here because we're just going to get rid of it all anyways and just put a brand new kitchen in. I'm not trying to save these cabinets. I'm not trying to save the drywall even or anything like that. I'm just going to be replacing and making a brand new kitchen as it is. So I could just write that all off and assume it's all brand new, rip it all out because it probably is going to be. Now, if you go into the living room, same situation. You can't even tell what's wrong with this place, right? You just see that there's so much crap. Am I going to save the flooring on this property if I'm looking at what's on it already? No. So you can make some adjustments in your plan right away as for rehab, knowing that you're literally doing everything in this house cosmetically at a minimum. Now, we don't know about electrical, plumbing. We don't know about structural yet or anything like that. But we already know as soon as we step in this house, we are saving nothing. We are literally ripping out all of it. The only thing we might save is some sheetrock. But even then, you can see there's a bunch of damage in the sheetrock to begin with. So we're going to be doing a lot of sheetrock repair. So let's make some wild assumptions. Let's assume we're doing 100% of flooring. Let's assume we're doing 100% of the kitchen, all the bathrooms, all the, a big chunk of sheetrock, all the base, all the trim, all the doors. So if you already know that, then who cares about the condition of the rest of it? Because you already know you're going to do all of it. Then it's just a measurement of square footage and so forth. Now we're going to go downstairs in a second. You'll find out that there's a lot of messed up stuff down there. That's where all the mold's growing. But the rest of this house is just full of so much garbage. This bathroom you can't even use. I don't even know how. I could tell you guys the entire story about how this happened on this property. But essentially, you have a husband and wife situation. They get divorced. The husband cheated, did all great stuff. Wife had the property, got super pissed, didn't want him to get anything out of it. So she completely let it get destroyed, squatters, everything. And eventually she flooded the basement and let it go to crap so that nobody can get a single penny of it. So vindictive for sure. Now, I show you this photo. This is the only photo we have of the master bedroom of this house pre-purchase because we couldn't get into it. You can barely see right here, but there's a vanity right here. We couldn't get into the actual master bathroom. So we knew there probably was a bathroom over there, but we didn't know what it looked like. But we assumed that we're going to be ripping it all out anyways. So going down to the stairs, I mean, they got safety issues, blah, 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 but whatever, you can fix that stuff. But going downstairs, this was a surprise at first glance. But this is not like spray paint. This is mold, very much mold. Now, the industry would call it discoloration because how do you know it's not mold? How do you know it's mold without testing it? All right, cool. Yes, I could agree with that. Sometimes it's just mildew, but this is blanking mold for sure. So the whole property, the whole basement looked like this. The bathroom looks great. Anybody want to, use that bathroom anytime soon? Now, what the culprit was in this house, oh man, I stopped taking photos. I didn't have the rest of them up here. Actually, I got a good one. This is my favorite one I want to show you guys. 1 second. This is good. So this is right near the trash out. But this kind of gives you an idea of what's underneath some of that trash. So in one of the bedrooms in the basement, we rip everything out. We start trashing it all out. And luckily, I took this photo myself. I was pretty excited about it. And being able to see how nasty it really got for years of just water sitting in it. You can also see this is the area that I didn't have a photo of a second ago. This is the big open living room area. The reason why we didn't have a photo is because we weren't able to access this until after we started the trash out and see what's so messed up in there. You can see our demo guy right there has a full on like firefighter respirator set up right there, hazmat respirator, just because it's so bad in there. Okay, so we know the place is messed up. So what does that actually mean? I want to first go over some initial numbers with you guys. Now, this property was brought to us to purchase for roughly a little over $170,000. So after closing costs, we're going to be buying it for $172,000. Now, in this market, in this particular neighborhood, a property like this, that if it's not really that fixed up, maybe it just needs like some remodel and so forth, but you can live in it. Believe it or not, a property like this is worth a little over $300,000. Now, right off the bat, we go, okay, well, if this is just a basic, no big deal property, and it definitely needs to be a normal fixer, there you have a $300,000 as is value. Now, in its present state, we knew we were buying it for way under value. So when we're looking at these properties, a lot of people only look after the ARV, the after repair value. Now, I think that's one of the most important numbers when investing in these properties. But when you're negotiating on a property, you don't want to just look at the ARV. Most investors out there would tell you, look at the ARV minus your rehab costs, add in whatever profit you want, and then that's going to give you what's called your max offer price, MOP, max offer price. Now, ARV minus rehab minus what profit you want to make, right, and all the other expenses, including holding costs, gives you your maximum offer price. Now, that's a really, really important number to know, and everybody should know that going into it. But just because your maximum offer price might be a certain amount, that doesn't mean that's what the actual house is worth. So in this example, I would say that if this house went on the market at the time that we bought it, it probably would have sold for a little over $200,000. So that said, Does that mean that our max offer price of $200,000 should be what we bought it for? No. We try to negotiate what we can, and we're also supplying cash for convenience to be able to close on this property. This ends up being a situation where the people that were selling it, right, which ends up being the family members, wanted it gone. It was sitting for 3 years like this, and they didn't want to deal with a single thing, a realtor, or anything like that. In order for us to adjust what our maximum offer can be, plus also we didn't know what was really wrong with the property, we gave them a relatively low offer that gave us enough buffer to be able to plan for any major issues. The sellers totally understood that. They knew that they were selling it for potentially undervalued, but they also knew that we can close in 2 weeks and have no issues with this property, and they can move on with their lives, or what's left of it in this situation for what they were involved in, and be done with the property. So convenience factor for sure. Now, coming back, one last thing on numbers. Let's say your maximum offer price is $200,000 on this property, but the as-is value, the houses in the neighborhood that would sell as is are only selling for $175,000. Does that mean you offer $200,000? No. You need to find out the as-is value for a property, and you do all of this through comparables, which I've done past videos on Bigger Pockets showing you guys comparables and how we go through that. So check those videos out for sure. That said, the comparables on this property said is worth maybe $200 as is. We were able to negotiate it down to $172. That gave us more buffer, right? And we planned a rehab budget of $125,000. Now, did I think we can get that rehab done for cheaper? I actually thought we could get this rehab done for cheaper, but there's so many unknowns with it because there's so many messed up things. In fact, one big surprise, we didn't even know there was a deck on the back because there's blackberry bushes growing over everything on the entire back of the house. We couldn't even get pictures of that. And we had no idea there was a deck we had to repair. So surprises. The garage was a surprise. Later, a roof was a surprise too. We also thought the ARV after repair value was $415,000. So judging all that, we got into the property. Now, let me show you what I mean earlier about one of my pro tips I'm going to give you guys, which is if the structural is fine on a house like this, and there's nothing wrong with the foundation, there's nothing wrong with the major framing, and you're not going to actually really change a whole lot of the floor plan, then all that means is that you can gut it down to the studs, and it's just paint by numbers. It's just putting it back together. Let me show you what I mean by that. These are the photos of exactly what it looked like right when we were done with all the trash out. All the trash is gone. All the moldy, nasty sheetrock is completely removed, basically 100% of the basement. And we killed, oil-based kills, the entire house 3 times. So we put 3 coats of kills on this thing just to seal everything in and completely eradicate the whole stuff as much as possible, dry everything out, and trash the whole thing out so we have a blank slate on this property. So this is what it looks like. So once you get into a house now, it's all white. It looks clean. It just has sheetrock damage. There's really nothing wrong with this property. It's just a blank slate. It's something that you can get into. The kitchen is just, oh, cool. We can put a kitchen back here. We can, oh, look, there's an actual living room and a sliding glass door. We had no idea was there, which is kind of funny from the before photos. And was a deck in the back at one point, and we had to replace that later. You can see that everything's just bad and looks clean, but it's not so good. We have a lot of sheetrock repair, so a lot of skim coating, so you can pretty much repair all the sheetrock on that. One of the funny stories about this house actually is that the lady that owned it hated this place so much that she was shoving trash and garbage and everything actually into the holes of these walls, which were a surprise for some of our guys when they found out later. Well, check this out, right? It's really not that big of a deal once you get into it. It's just a messed up blank slate to work out of. In the bathroom, that nasty bathroom. Look, we gutted the whole thing in there to start fresh, put a brand new bathtub in there. Here's the master bath. I don't know why that ceiling fan stayed there, but it did, but we got rid of it later. We finally got to see what's inside the master bath, and we're like, oh, cool. There's actually, a shower and walk-in area, and we can make that better. Cool. Downstairs, all the sheetrock is gone now. So all the mold's been dealt with. It all got bleached, kills, all that crap. Everything's done. It's all dry. There's no water issues. We made sure it was completely taken care of many, many times over. But now you're just seeing framing, good framing, right? No structural issues, nothing wrong with this thing. We're not changing the floor plan in the basement. So now what I mean by paint by numbers is that it's make sure the electrical is good, make sure the plumbing's good, get some insulation in there, put some sheetrock up, and now you're back to square one and you can start with finishes. So going through all that, I'm going to get into that a little bit more detail in a second, but you can tell there's really not much here. This mechanical room, we needed to add a new furnace and so forth because that was all messed up. Everything was messed up down here. And when you start fresh, it's actually a lot easier to work on this. I want to go over, lastly, what I mean by paint by numbers when it comes to rehab. There's a great book out there called a book on estimating rehab costs by my good friend, Mr. Jay Scott. Now, Bigger Pockets publishes this, so you guys go to biggerpockets.com. They're why we make these videos. Now, I'm not just plugging this book because it's part of Bigger Pockets. I'm plugging this book because I bought this book back in the early, like 2014 or something like that, when I needed to start doing rehab on my own. Long story, I had a business partnership that my partner handled the rehab. I handled the acquisitions, realtors, all that kind of great stuff, and the money side. My partner handled the rehab. I didn't know much about rehab after that partnership fell away. So this was the only book I could find out there that actually broke down the rehab process step by step. And by paint by numbers, what I mean by that is that if you actually open this book up, it shows each chapter is the process of rehab. It starts from where you should start and ends on where you should finish. And if you just follow that, that's actually the schedule for rehab. When you go to the rough-in, you always do plumbing before electrical. You do the insulation before sheetrock, right? After sheet, and so forth and so forth. But you also start with the roof, and you start with the framing, and you start with securing the property and the windows and drying it in. All of that is broken down into that book. So if I now know that the structural is good, then I just got to deal with the rough-in. That's plumbing, electrical, and any kind of insulation or HVAC, mechanical, that kind of stuff that we got to deal with. Everything behind the walls, that's called rough-in, right? After that's done, sheetrock goes up, and then it's just finishes. It's finish work or trim work, depending on how you want to call it. So buy that book for sure. I highly, highly recommend it. It is my favorite rehab book out there. It's actually the only one that I think is worth the damn reading, to be honest with you. All right, so let's dive in this one more side with the floor plan. Now, we make these floor plans. This is funny. So this is actually what we do before we buy a house, right? We always chicken scratch some very basic floor plans of what the house looks like so we can analyze it a little bit better. So this particular house is the front of the house down over here, and this is actually the first floor. So this is that front door. Here's the actual little kitchen. You can see this is the living room. There's the fireplace that was over here or is over here that didn't get drawn in. One bedroom. The bathroom in the hallway, the master, and you go downstairs. Here's the big garage. Go downstairs. Here's all the moldy hallway that we guys showed you. There's that bedroom with the red mattress and how nasty and deliciously tasty it looked. Of course, this is the bathroom. It had cabinets in it, right? Based on the pictures, it didn't have a shower or anything like that. The mechanical room, big closet, and then that big area and another fireplace over there, right? So if you had just these two things, this here, the before photos, and this here, you could kind of judge a little bit about the rehab on this property and start making some educated guesses. That's my favorite word in this business, educated guesses. That's two words. Educated guesses in this property to be able to judge what the rehab might be, ARV, design, and so forth. Now, spoiler alert. Oh, that's a hard word to say. Spoiler alert. This entire business is all about educated guesses. That's all we do. When you invest in real estate, when you invest in anything, look at stock guys and crypto dudes. All they're doing is making educated guesses on what the market's going to do. In real estate and doing this type of business like we do, flipping houses, BRRRRs, multifamily, commercial, whatever, we're educatedly guessing that we're going to make money on the property somehow through a strategy we create. So, pro tip, get really good at educatedly guessing or becoming an educated guesser in this business. Now, how do you do that? Right? You learn, you grow, you get on Bigger Pockets, you watch more of these videos, you network with other people like me and other people that are out there, experienced investors or inexperienced investors that are trying to push and grow. You build your tribe. You get out there and you do the business as best as you can, mitigating the risk as much as possible. Now, one last pro tip that I want to give you guys before we get through the rest of this video is no risk, no goodies. You don't take any risk in this business, you're not going to get any good goodies, right? Now, you can get some actually low risk deals that are out there, but you're also going to get low returns, right, on your investment. So the higher the risk, you need to buffer in higher returns. I have a whole video on Bigger Pockets that breaks that down, rate equals risk. Now, you get a higher reward for potential higher risk. Does that happen all the time? No, especially if you're bad at doing educated guesses. But if you know there's going to be a high risk on this property, and granted, this particular property had a high risk because we couldn't analyze the entire deal because of how much crap was in it, we had to create a bigger buffer to offset that risk. So what did we do? We raised the rehab budget to be able to plan that we're going to have bad things happen to us on this property because we can't assume we're going to save anything. So we just assumed we're saving nothing and raised our budget to $125,000. Now, if we knew what was really wrong with this property, we probably could have actually reduced our budget. But thankfully, we actually had a $125,000 budget because that's what we ended up spending on it at the end of the day, a little over $125,000. So I hope that helps. Get really good at educated guesses and understand that no risk, no goodies, right? Take some risk, but do it through the right process so that you can make the right numbers, be objective about it so you can net some profit on the back end of these deals. All right, back to the floor plans. Let me show you really quick. This is the upstairs floor plan, or what it looks like upstairs. This is actually the front of the house over here. So sorry, guys, to switch it around on you, but this is the front of the house. There's that kitchen. This is the as-built. We didn't do one of the downstairs because we really didn't change much down there. But you can now see a little bit more professional. This is done through a program called Home Designer Pro. Now, if we jump into the proposed, this is actually what we decided to do to the property. So in this house here, we opened up the kitchen area. So if you remember this area, this was actually walled over here. So this only had a little doorway. So just like every show on HGTV, when it comes to houses, open up the kitchen, right? So that's what we did. We opened up the kitchen. That makes people happier. So we took down this wall and just made an actual peninsula, made it look a little bit better. We'll show you the after photos in a second. Down here, the only thing we did is this master bath. This was all an enclosed area. So if we go back to the as-built here, you can see that the vanity was separate from the actual toilet. And we just wanted to make that actually more of a traditional bathroom. So we just changed that up a bit. We took some of the room of the master and we made the closet bigger. And then we made a traditional master bath so that you go in with a pocket door just for saving space. And that's really the only thing we did upstairs. So we changed the master bath, a little bit of framing, and we changed the kitchen by opening up the wall, which was taking down framing, right? Now in the downstairs, the only thing we did was where there was no bathtub and there was just cabinets for whatever reason, we added a bathtub and we changed the furnace room a little bit by adding a door. That was it. So other than that, the downstairs stayed the same. We just did this so that the contractor knew what was up. Now I want to go back to this picture here and I want to go over why this is important. Now, when you are looking, this is going to be a huge pro tip for you guys. When you are looking at properties that are completely messed up and completely trashed all to the nines everywhere, how easy is it for you to be able to get a contractor in there to bid that house for you? Now, a lot of people say before you buy a property, you need to get a bunch of bids, get 3 bids, compare them to each other, right? Get a scope of work done, all that great stuff before you ever put an offer on a house. All right, let's grow up here a little bit. That's really hard to do in today's age, especially in today's market. You need to get as much as you can done before you buy a property, analyze your deal as tough as possible, and get as much numbers as you can onto the deal. But some properties you got to move quick. Some properties you can't analyze the whole entire thing in detail. And if you're scared of that, don't buy those properties. But check this out, right? You go back to this picture and you see that it's a blank slate, which we talked about already. Now imagine bringing a contractor in here to bid out this blank slate. There's nothing ugly about it. There's not stuff to guess. They can see everything. One of the banes of the existence of rehabbing is something called change orders. So how do you eliminate change orders as much as possible is you make it a blank slate for a contractor to be able to work through. So we always sub out our trash, we always sub out our demo, and we do that as much as possible. So that way we can get our other contractors in there later. So they're not guessing what's wrong with the house and then jacking up their bid to make their buffer for them. Because imagine if you brought a contractor into this. This is the same exact room. So imagine bringing a contractor into that and say, hey, can you give me a bid to finish this all out with new base, trim, boards, everything, right? They can't do that. They don't know what the hell's wrong with it. They're going to have to cut everything out. They're making some massive assumptions, right? And you're going to be surprised at how big that number is going to be because the contractor needs to protect themselves. So we always hire our own people, not my people, but we hire our own trash out guys to go clean a property like this and find out demo companies that can clean a property like this. So that way we can reduce our costs when we bring our general contractors in to bid on a property that looks like this. It'll save you thousands of dollars if you do it this way. So try it. And if you're not comfortable with it, just don't buy a property like this to begin with. But that's a huge tip. Don't pass up on that one. Okay, so I want to go over the after photos with you guys because that's always fun to see the big wow factor of what it looks like once we're all done with this thing, to make it show that all the hard work paid off, get this thing on the market. Hopefully we were on budget and so that we can sell it, make a profit on it. Or for those of you BRRRRs out there, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, get a tenant in it and refinance it and get your money back out if you did the numbers right. One regret I always have on every property we flip is that we flipped it and we didn't keep it as a BRRRR. But sometimes you have to make money in this business and make some mad profit. And making 60 grand on a house like this is always fantastic. If the numbers don't fit for you on a good BRRRR, it's always good to as a flip. Remember, side note, every good BRRRR has to be a good flip. Always has to be a good flip, no matter what. Anybody says otherwise, they're wrong. In my opinion, I could be wrong too. So in this particular property, if we wanted to BRRRR it instead of flip it, then that's fine. But if we changed our mind and we said, okay, screw it, let's sell it instead, well, because it was a good BRRRR, it's going to be a good flip. Think about that one for a second. So check this out. So landscaping, obviously different. This is actually called sod. We had to put that down because it was almost impossible to grow grass that time of year where we had it. So it looks beautiful. We also, one big surprise that we had that I can't get into too much in this video is we actually had to cut out all this concrete in the driveway into the garage itself. The reason why I can't get into the video is because I'm a hypocrite. We didn't take enough photos at that 2-week period that we're doing all the concrete work on that garage to be able to show you in this video. We have like some really bad ones that I'm just not going to get into. But essentially, after we removed all the trash that was in that garage, we saw that the garage was completely sloped and sunken in a bit. We had to cut all that concrete out, reshore some things up, pour in a new slab, and it looks fantastic today. But that was about $6,000 that we weren't planning on spending, that we ended up spending. We also weren't planning on repairing the roof. So the roof ended up becoming an issue later, and it's something we left alone on the entire project. We thought it was fine. At the end of it, we had a negotiation with with the buyer, people we sold it to. The roof wasn't good after all, and we had to spend another $7,000 to repair the roof, which is why we were roughly at $125,000, because we thought we were going to be below budget around 110, 115. So that said, here we go. Looking good. House looks beautiful. Look at that blue door. Kitchen, there's that wall. It's gone. Where'd it go? So we opened it up, made it look even more beautiful. Now, like I said, if you had plumbing here in this area, we already knew the plumbing was jacked up. We were going to replace it. We already knew that we were going to do some new electrical in this area because we're doing a new kitchen. We also knew we're doing all new cabinets, all new flooring, all that stuff. So we were able to budget all that in the front end. We didn't know how we were going to design it. We didn't know what it was fully going to look like. All we knew is we're doing all brand new, and we just put a big number on it and called it a day. Looks fantastic. We were able to save that fireplace. We just painted the brick instead, made it look good, put in a new mantle. The flooring is fantastic too. Looks all super cool. Now I picked no finishes out in my entire business. My actually like practical partner, Serena, she does all the finishes on our houses, and she makes them look really, really awesome. So sub that out if you suck at finishes like me. I hate looking at finishes. I'm not very good at it. I'm also partially colorblind. So there's that master bath that we turned into a legit master bath. This is the only window that we added in the entire property. Everything else stayed the same. We cut in that master shower. That's from the master bath too. So there's the double vanity. This is that bedroom that, if you remember, that's the red bedroom with all the mold. Same one, right? Just no more mold. All new sheetrock. Everything looks great. That's the bathroom downstairs. This used to be that little cabinet area that you couldn't see from the before photos. We got that thing into an actual real bathtub. And there's that nasty area. We had to put in a new gas fireplace there because that one was all messed up. That was an expense we weren't planning on doing. It's about like $1,500, something like that. But we ended up doing it anyways because we didn't know what was under there. We had no idea. So when we ripped everything out, we saw that. We had to deal with that as well. But luckily we had that buffer. So house looked fantastic. As you guys can tell, it sold really, really fast on this market. So final numbers. We bought this place for $172,000. We put $125,333 into it, and we sold it for $415,000. Now we have closing costs. We had holding costs, right? We had some big holding costs on this property because my money wasn't cheap on this one for a lot of reasons, and I'm not going to go over that in this video. But holding costs cost us some on this one. So we ended up costing us a little over $24,000 just in holding costs alone because of the time it took us to complete this property. Permits, issues. We had contractor issues on this one. We had too many projects going on at the same time that we had about a month and a half, 2-month period where we had to have this project sit because we couldn't get the right subs in there, mainly because we had a drywaller issue. The drywaller that subbed that property out basically took his sweet time. It was supposed to be a 2-week job. It ended up taking him 45 days to get through the sheetrock, which then pushed back all our contractors and our schedules for the finished work, which then had our contractors on different jobs when this one was scheduled earlier. Big story on that stuff. Not getting onto it in this video, but essentially, one bad sub can push out all the other contractors and mess up the entire job cycle on this thing. Now, we had a little bit more holding costs than we thought, and we also had closing costs. Now, most people are going to pay 5 to 6% in real estate commissions, and they're going to pay actual closing costs when they go to sell the property. The state of Washington has a 1.78% excise tax on this property, which means that if we sell it, doesn't matter what we sell it for, we're paying at least 1.78% of the property value that we sold it for on top of our additional closing costs. Now, there's no state income tax in Washington, so I'll play that excise tax all day. But what does that mean? It means our selling costs, our real estate commissions, and our closing costs ends up being $28,220. Now, we pay a little bit less than 5% real estate commission because we do that in-house. What does that net us? That nets us a total of $60,422 of net profit over the course of a number of months. And believe it or not, short of the drywaller, the garage having some issues, and having to replace the roof in the end, there really wasn't a lot of headaches on this property. It was good to get it done. The neighbors loved it. The neighbors loved us doing it, that's for sure. They were high-fiving us by the end of this project. This house still looks great out there. Zillow actually has this thing valued for more since we bought it, which is always frustrating and exciting for the new owners at the same time. All right, so wrap it up. Final thoughts for you guys. Let's resurface those pro tips. Number one, what did I say? If the structural is fine on a house like this, and there's nothing major going on with the structural, then once you take it down the studs, if you do, it's just a blank slate to start over, especially if you're not changing the floor plan. So don't be scared of houses like this if you can budget in taking it down to the studs, because then it's pretty simple if you're not changing the floor plan. The only time it gets complicated is if you're dramatically changing the floor plan. Stay away from those if it's not something you're comfortable with. In addition to that, make sure you guys buy Jay Scott's book, the book on estimating rehab costs. It's literally the Bible for me when it comes to doing this business, when it comes to rehab and construction. The second pro tip that I went over with you guys has to do with basically making educated guesses, right? Get really good at making educated guesses. Do your best you can. Learn this business. Go on to biggerpockets.com. Go on the YouTube channels. Watch more videos like this. Make sure you guys comment, like, subscribe to videos like this. This is Bigger Pockets. Comment below. Ask questions, as many questions as possible. I'll do my best to answer them. Other people viewing this will do their best to answer them. And check out the forums on biggerpockets.com because there's plenty of places you can ask questions there. But get good at educatedly guessing on this business through experience and through asking questions and through videos and through education. And last but not least, no risks, no goodies. If you increase the risk of a project, make sure you're increasing the buffer that you need on this project to be able to make the net profit you're seeking. If you cannot see what's underneath it, then plan that it's probably bad, and don't put it all on red and hope that it's going to work out. Do the best and do what I do, assume it's going to be bad. And then if you have to pass on the job, you miss out on maybe that opportunity. But if more often than not, if you pass on the ones that are going to be really, really bad, that's going to save you in the long run versus hoping that it's going to be good all the time. Because I can promise you right now, one day it's not going to be good on one of these properties, and it's going to bite you in the butt if you guessed wrong. So that said, make sure you comment and like, subscribe. You can follow me at Tarl Yarber on Instagram. I hope you guys like properties like this. Please definitely let me know if you like this type of video, because we could do more of these for you. There's plenty of these on Bigger Pockets YouTube channel right now to check out. Other than that, hope you guys like this. See you on the next video.